In 2008, the Brazilian Ferrari driver lost the Formula One championship in the final race of that year to McLaren's Lewis Hamilton by just 1 point. Things would have been different if there wasn't the famous Crashgate of the Singapore GP, which was the fourth race before the end of that season. Felipe Massa has now taken the legal route, 15 years later, due to recent comments by Bernie Ecclestones, then F1's commercial director, that both he and the FIA president at the time, Max Mosley, knew before his championship ended in 2008 that Nelson Piquet Jr. and Renault deliberately caused the Brazilian driver's accident at the Singapore GP. Renault F1, with team principal Flavio Briatore and race director Pat Simons, instructed Piquet Jr. to deliberately crash at a specific point on the Singapore circuit at the right time so that the team's other driver, Fernando Alonso, would he benefited from the trailing safety car as he had made his pit stop only a few seconds earlier. As it happened, Piquet sent his Renault into the turn 17 barrier on the 14th lap of the race, at a point it was impossible to remove the car without a safety car. On that season, drivers prohibited from making an immediate pit stop before all cars had lined up behind the safety car. When the green light was given to the pits and all the drivers entered to take advantage of the opportunity given by the safety car, Alonso found himself leading the race by a large margin. The Spaniard of course won by a demonic roll of luck, with a car that wasn't that fast like Ferraris and McLarens of that year. But when Massa came in for his pit stop, in the heat of the moment the Scuderia did not have time to release the fuel pump from the Brazilian's car. He gave him the green light to leave the pits and the Cavallino unclipped the entire fuel hose, which ran like a snake's tail as the Ferrari pulled away. Massa was forced to stop at the pit exit and wait for the Scuderia's mechanics to remove the pump, dropping him to 13th in the race at the finish and losing valuable points in the title battle. At the same time, Hamilton was winning the precious 8 points of third place in a title battle that was ultimately decided by 1 point. Ecclestones' recent admission that he was aware, along with Mosley, of Renault's scandalous decision before the 2008 championship ended and before the title was officially awarded to Lewis Hamilton, is what prompted Massa's decision to take legal action now to challenge the result of that year. Ecclestones said in a recent interview with F1 Insider, "We decided not to do anything for now, we wanted to protect the sport and save it from a huge scandal. That's why I used angelic tongues to persuade my former driver Nelson Piquet to keep calm for the time being." He added, "We had enough information in time to investigate the matter. According to the statutes, we should have cancelled the race in Singapore under these conditions. That means it would never have happened for the championship standings. And then Felipe Massa would have become world champion and not Lewis Hamilton." In addition to Ecclestones' recent statements, the matter was known before the end of the 2008 championship and the then racing director of the F1 races, Charlie Whiting, before he passed away unexpectedly in 2019. The Briton had told in a documentary about Mosley's life that he had been informed of Piquet Jr.'s deliberate accident in the days of the decisive final GP in Brazil of that season. There were some conspiracy theories after the match but none seemed to have any substance, Charlie had said. "But in Brazil I was talking to Nelson's Piquet father. I was his engineer for a few years and we've been friends ever since. He came to meet me in my office, and we talked. Then, suddenly, he closed the door and put his foot down to hold it shut so that no one could come in, and he told me what happened in Singapore." His words aimed at Briatore, "He told me roughly that Flavio caused my child to crash. I told him then that this is a very serious matter. I don't know who else he had spoken to, but he told me, keep it to yourself. But in saying that, he would have known that I would have told Max." Although Whiting did inform Mosley immediately, before the 2008 championship ended, Mosley decided not to immediately launch an investigation at that year's Singapore GP. Mosley, a lawyer himself, defended his decision by saying an investigation could not be launched because there was no hard evidence that Piquet Jr. had been instructed by Renault F1 to deliberately cause his accident. Then Nelson Jr. was fired from the team. "Father Nelson came to see me in Monaco, and told me the story. I didn't tell him that I already knew, I told him that this was horrible. Even though we had his signed statement, I knew that the defense would say that he just got fired and he's just trying to cause trouble. And so it happened. When Renault F1 decided to release Piquet Jr. in early August 2009, after 10 races, in which he had not scored a single point, the young Brazilian visited the FIA and informed them himself that the team had asked him to intentionally cause the accident. Thus, the FIA opened an investigation in early September 2009. Renault F1 denied the allegations, and even indicated that it would begin legal proceedings against Piquet on charges of blackmail to keep his place in the team. But Ecclestones' team soon backtracked on that decision. The interrogations of its members began at the 2009 Belgian GP. "We put them in the paddock secretly because if Flavio found out he would have closed the doors completely," explained Mosley. The first man to be questioned was Fernando Alonso, the surprise winner of the 2008 Singapore GP. And the Spaniard denied any knowledge of what had happened. Many may think that Alonso knew, but it is interesting if the boss, who has big experience in questioning people, tells you that he was convinced that Alonso was telling the truth. Alonso and his engineers, therefore, were found not guilty. The Renault F1 team has been banned from F1 with a suspension. Simmons, who admitted illegality and expressed remorse, was banned from international motorsport for 5 years, while Briatore was banned for life. "I feel bad for Massa today," 92-year-old Ecclestones said in a recent interview. "He did everything right, won his home race, and was cheated out of a title he deserved, while Hamilton had all the luck in the world and won his first championship. Today I would handle it differently. That's why Michael Schumacher is, for me, the only record holder of 7 championships. Although the statistics say otherwise," he concluded. And Felipe Massa explained, about his justification attempt 15 years later, "It's very sad to know that the result of a race had to be annulled and that I would have had a championship. In the end, I was the one who lost the most with this, so we start trying to figure it all out." We have seen other such cases in sports, such as Lance Armstrong losing all his titles when it turned out that he had used anabolic steroids. What's the difference? The matter will take time, until the file is prepared by Massa's lawyers and they decide if the case is really compelling enough to go to court. At the moment it seems like an outrageous scenario to have a world championship taken away from a driver after 15 years. And even more outrageous to have it taken away even though the driver in question was not at fault for the illegality that secured him the title.